I'd like to invite the rest of the panelists to come up, please. And we'll start with Mr. Srage, the president of MIA in Southeast Asia at Qualcomm, followed by Mr. Hatem Bamatraf, group CTO at Etisalat, Mr. Igor Leprince, SVP and head of Middle East and Africa at Nokia, Mr. Jawad Shaikh, who is the executive VP digital business at Do, and also Dr. Karim Taga, managing partner, global practice leader at Arthur D. Little, who promised that he will not ask questions that are too long. Excuse me. You can hold it. Okay. Dr. Aisha, just to start with, I know the speech was in Arabic. Maybe we'll get some perspective from you also in English for the rest of the audience. You mentioned that the key premise for smart to buy is happiness, and that's a really an aspirational goal. Can you just elaborate on that? Why happiness, and what led to kind of happiness, and how does that translate from a smart city perspective?
Well, His Highness Sheikh, first of all, thank you, Ghazi. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid believe that the role of any government is to serve happiness for their people. And he introduced this new vocabulary in government management literature, that the role of the government is to make the people happy, not only collecting taxation or providing normal services. And so happiness is so dear to his heart. That's why the vision of a smart city came around happiness. Today, we are using technology not to make our life more complicated. I don't want to see 1,000 applications in my smart device, and I cannot decide which application I can use. So happiness is more about simplicity and utilizing these technologies to make our life more simpler and happier.
Thank you. You mentioned also partnership and public-private partnership and stakeholders and ecosystem. I know we had an interesting discussion about this. And this is an opportunity to get some of the ecosystem partners to commit. We're live. We're in a panel discussion, so hopefully we get some commitments from the partners in terms of participating into the initiatives from a smart city perspective. Jay, just turning the page to you. In terms of stakeholders from a smart city initiative, who do you think are the primary stakeholders? Can you elaborate on that? Just talk to us about key stakeholders across a city, and especially leading to the development and realization of a smart city objective.
Oh, sure. So actually, first I want to thank Tony here for setting up actually the first regional venue that brings the public and the private sector to start the dialogue. So just looking at it from an evolution of the telecom sector, this is where the stakeholders were mainly driven by the telecom operators and their infrastructure vendors, the consumer devices, and the ecosystem and the content. When you talk about smart cities, the evolution of the stakeholders changes. What we see is that the role of the local government expands significantly from a regulatory perspective now to the need of having to drive strategy, planning, and more importantly, the integration of the different elements. Dr. Aisha mentioned the 6 different sectors. So at the end, from a private perspective, it's very difficult for us to bring that integration together. This is going to be a very important mission for the government to bring all these elements, whether it's on the health and the education side, whether it's on the transport, the connected buildings as a platform, as a state for the connected cities. So the role of the government has actually expanded from a regulatory perspective to strategy and planning. We have actually seen it actually in Qualcomm. We just launched recently a joint project with New York City to provide full connectivity which is the first step in turning New York as a smart city. And we have had first-hand experience into how that changes in the stakeholders is getting done today. We have seen a lot of push from the city to make it happen. So they were very active in doing the integration between the road transportation and between the real estate developers. They brought different elements together to start that dialogue. The second one was on the investment side. So pushing the private sector to do the job is one thing. The other thing is actually investing in the necessary areas that will bring that integration together. So that's from a government perspective. From a telecom operator perspective, we have seen the role actually evolving from providing the services on the infrastructure side to actually getting to becoming a service provider. When Huawei mentioned that the integration, the transformation from a communication company to an IT company or a combination is very key, because right now we're seeing the integration between the enterprise world and the IT world and the consumer world. So now the operators have to evolve to manage that integration between the three different elements.
Hopefully we'll get the operators on the panel to contribute to that and get their point of view as well. And Igor will, same
Igor.
type of questions, please. But to start with Hatem, so there's a talk about a smart city being, the business model of a smart city is quite different from a traditional telco business model. And even the ecosystem and even the architecture, the smart city blueprint, how things are evolving is still something that is in formation, if we can say so. So the players are not really clear. Unlike traditional ICT, telco, and so on, this is quite clear. But in a smart city, the players are not clear. Who does what and who's responsible for what? So being a telco, of course, and being a key player in the UAE and in Dubai, what do you see are, first, the role of someone like Etisalat, and same question to you, Jawad, but the role of someone like Etisalat, as well as the enablers of a smart city? Where do you see yourself playing around these enablers?
I think Dr. Aisha said it at the beginning, and it was very clear that technology should be an enabler for such a step, to move to smart city. Looking back in history, with the introduction of mobile phones, mobility, it's as a result of technology, of course, innovation. So mobility have added, I would say, a lot of productivity in people living, or the way that people live. And of course, technology evolved so rapidly after that with lots of infrastructure advancement, technology infrastructure that provided a very fast way of processing data and processing information, and lots of intelligence and understanding data and computation of data. This have resulted as well in, I wouldn't say that have added smartness to people's life, but it enhanced the way that people live. Smartphones, and that's why they call it smartphones. After the introduction of smartphone, we noticed that with that device, the percentage of information that are available today to the people is probably much more than what it used to be before. And I remember that in one of the conferences or events, somebody said that smartphones have enabled access to information today more than what used to be there when President Bush was in presidency. So anybody with a smartphone today have access to information that it is so powerful, which this information have, I will call it, added some smartness and some productivity to our life. The role of telecom operators is, again, I think that we are part of the overall ecosystem. We are an enabler. We are a partner at the same time, not only from the infrastructure side and just the connectivity side, but I think that as Jay said it rightfully, that we want to position ourselves as a full end-to-end service provider. So we provide the solution, the technology itself, but as well, we want to contribute as well in the overall solution, and we commit over an end-to-end, basically, SLAs.
And I think the smart city, by the nature of things, the type of projects, initiatives you have in a smart city requires this kind of relationship. It's not a traditional vendor-customer relationship. It'll be more elaborate. We're going to look at different business models, different types of relationships, end-to-end, as you mentioned, but also the partnership discussion is very important. Igor, same question as Jay. So what is the perspective of an industry player like Nokia, and what are some of the best practices that you've seen?
Well, very, very good question. And if I may, actually, the reason I came with a couple of papers with me is that when I knew I was speaking in this panel, I thought, well, I'm actually looking for the definition of smart city. And I can tell you why. There are many. And Dr. Aisha, I obviously missed part of your speech in Arabic, and I apologize for that. And of course, His Highness' vision on happiness is very important. But there are many, many definitions. Yeah. I'm going to read you two, actually, just very, very briefly. One is saying that a smart city uses digital technologies translate into better public services for citizens. Maybe you can read happiness behind that. Better use of resources, less impact on the environment. Right? The next one is a city that uses information and communication technology to make the critical infrastructure components and services of the city more aware, more interactive, as you said, more efficient. And there are hundreds and hundreds of definitions. But what all these definitions have in common is we're talking about a connected city. Connected city by mobile broadband. And ultimately, that's really what is behind all these definitions. You will find the word connected. You will find the word mobile broadband. And reflecting a little bit of what does that mean for Nokia, of course, that's what we do. And we are the enabler of the enabler here. But it's quite interesting because we actually launched a vision in Nokia, and for very long we said we are the end-to-end mobile broadband specialist, which was a bit less profound. But actually we launched a vision a week ago, and this vision said that we want to expand human possibility in a connected world. So actually moving a little bit away, this very profound vision. I'm not here to talk about vision, but it goes far beyond just the mobile broadband, because I think we do realize, all of us, that actually what we are doing, actually expand the human possibilities. And I think that's where we feel we stand really. But to have a practical answer, not a visionary answer of your question, we are an enabler of the enabler, because we are the company that will make the technology, the solution, the services for these smart cities to work.
Okay, thank you, Igor. We'll come back to that. Jawad.
Yes.
The do perspective, you're the second, not any pun intended, but you're the second player in the market, and your perspective on partnership, on the role of a service provider in a smart city strategy, initiatives, etc.
So I would say second only in sequence, I guess, from an inception, and I know we chat about this quite frequently, but I just want to go back to the vision, His Highness' vision, and this notion of happiness, because I think it's such a profound statement. I mean, we look at vision statements of cities around the world, because there's like hundreds of smart city programs taking place across Europe, Asia. I mean, China has about hundreds of smart cities taking place. But I don't think anyone really has encapsulated this notion of what is the ultimate objective of creating a smart city. And it comes down to that it, as His Highness has defined it, is the happiness of the people that live in it. And I think the profound part is that what happens when people are happy. So when people are happy, they tend to be more relaxed, the spending patterns change, the way they look at life perspective change. It attracts more people, so because the quality of life is such that more people want to live in a place where happiness is in such abundant supply. So I think ultimately the impact is very economic, because ultimately you can expect that a place where residents tend to be happy attracts more people who want to be happy. So ultimately economic growth can be a very real outcome, and is a very real outcome of making residents happy. And we were doing some research, and I'm glad Karim is sitting on this side of the table and on that side, but we were doing some research on the impact of creating a smart city. And we've seen that in Dubai, for instance, it could mean over almost 10 billion extra GDP contribution that the smart city program could generate. And over 16% incremental to where we would be in, let's say, 2020. So there is significant economic benefit of providing this notion of happiness to people. The role that we play, and the key and I think starting with, obviously, we've been enabling happiness for many, many years. I mean, we talk about the device that everybody loves and queues up for, but that Apple iPhone would be as helpful as this gadget in my hand if we weren't able to provide high-speed connectivity behind it. The only reason the iPhone experience is so powerful is because we have a high bandwidth, high-speed network that allows that to happen. And I think you've seen that progressively, the role that telecom operators have been playing has been going beyond providing the connectivity to providing a suite of managed services on top. But coming back to this point of economic benefit, I think the point I want to stress is that that level or that magnitude of the impact, positive impact on the economy is only realized when you look at smart city rather than discrete set of smart applications or smarts in the city, which Dubai already has, is when you see something that in its end-to-end perspective is a smart city. So it's the horizontal things that connect what currently are sitting in a very smart DIY, in a very smart transport, in a very smart health infrastructure. It's when you can create this horizontal link across the departments and be able to manage the city as opposed to manage more smarter departments is when you really unlock the true potential. Simply, example, me as a resident in Dubai wanting to go to the hospital for whatever reason. Now, if currently the health system is smart enough so I can call and make an appointment, but imagine that would be able to, with combined in an app, I'd be able to not only make the appointment at the hospital, but be navigated to the hospital with the least congestion, and be routed to the parking spot that would be available when I arrive. And you certainly start to see the value that as a consumer I can expect when the departments are talking to each other. And I think it's in this very horizontal platform creation that telecom operators can play a role, because we are already running large horizontal platforms that are collecting data, analyzing data for a particular activity of telecom today, but can quite easily be extended into other aspects of civic life. So I think this is where the power would be unlocked.
Very, very interesting view. So in essence, when we talk about a smart city, it's what we're saying is we need to link it to the city objectives, and we need to link it to what is important for the people of the city, the residents and so on, which is kind of what Dr. Aisha alluded to in the beginning. And just want to get to Karim for a minute. I know you and I were chatting just before, and you wanted to bring a specific example about the city of Vienna through your discussion. So please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about that indeed. Dr. Aisha said before that the driver is happiness. And indeed, happiness is let's say, a model that is more and more being tracked and monitored. One of many KPIs that exist today is the life quality of a city. And this is a global competition. Every city wants to be number one. Now, Vienna happened to be, thanks to this Mercer index they do yearly, for the 4th year in a row, number one in the world. Before Sydney, before other Vancouver cities you may know of. So it's a global competition on being number one. Why? Because we all know that in a few years down the road, 2020, 60% of the global population will be living in cities. Okay? So life quality is one contributor to happiness. It's not the only, but it's one. Now, what is the major driver in a city where you have millions of people living? We said it before. Mobility. not mobility in terms of using a mobile phone, mobility of commuting. You need to be able to go from one point to the other. Take now all the aspects of sustainability, price, time, etc. If every day, in particular in Europe, you have 1 to 2 hours on average to commute to go to work, right? And then you have also this CO2 impact, how you go to work and what you do going to work. This is becoming a fundamental driver. So the majority of the strategies now of city holdings is about improving the mobility. And mobility is a fantastic example to see how horizontally things can work. Now, the city of Vienna has developed a concept, and now it's already operational, called SMILE, where basically on application, you can use your smartphone, tablet, whatever, to define your route from A to B. Now, it's easy said than done, because in A to B, you may start with an e-bike, something you have to rent, so you have to have a payment sort of access to it. You can take then the tram or the underground. You can then take the train. And again, you can take an e-car or whatever you think of, depending on the weather. So you select on the application, is it the most economical, let's say, route you want to take, the most efficient in terms of time, or the most ecological? So depending on that, the route will be planned for you, and you will not only plan it, but you also book and have the payment arranged. So this shows how many stakeholders along with its application and how complex it is behind to make it happen, because you need the car manufacturers. Daimler started many years ago with the concept of small cars. The Smart came out. Now the Smart is used in many cities before even the smart city concept. They started with a smart car, where actually it's small. You can access it with your mobile phone. It tells you, it gives you points, loyalty points if you add gasoline into it, etc. You can park it wherever you want in the city. So there is a parking spot dedicated for that in the airport, for instance. Then you move on from a car manufacturer who changes business model from selling cars to manage a service, completely different business model, to bike service provider, to transportation. You have then 5 different sort of transportation in the city of Vienna. So mobility is a very good example of showing how important what Jawad was saying, these horizontal layers work together. From payment, you have to involve the banks, to leasing companies for the cars, to the car manufacturers, to the public transportation. So this is a wonderful example of showing that a city, when it designs its, let's say, concept for high life quality, that it selects one area, the anchor, to start all its smart city services. And as you mentioned before, it's about infrastructure, and it's about, you said before, the ability to have access to public services. Combining this gives you the result of a very interesting horizontal layer. You have to pick one, be successful in one, and then you can build upon that.
It's interesting. From the discussion that we had, Dr. Aisha, it's clear that there's various players, various stakeholders. There's also a linkage to the objectives of the city. There's one fundamental element of the city, which is the data of the city, the knowledge that's kind of throughout the city. And I know that, we were talking earlier that Dubai is taking very serious steps towards data. Can you just brief us, elaborate as what's Dubai doing and what are the imminent plans?
Sure. I just want to comment on the transportation or smart transportation. I said earlier that in Dubai we are focusing in 6 dimensions. Transportation or mobility is one of them. And we believe here in Dubai we are already smart in that dimension. In our strategy, actually, we are focusing more into a smart economy and a smart living, because we believe that none of the other cities focus on these 2 dimensions. Again, also when we are talking about the definition of a smart city, every city will have their own definitions, depend on their challenges and the journey that they want to pursue in their cities. And in Dubai, improving the quality of life and having the happiness as a driver, we need to cover all these dimensions without focusing in one of them. But for us, environment and mobility, they are the enabler dimensions for us because we've already passed many evolutions in these two dimensions and we are so much mature in them. Going back again to the data component, we believe as a smart city there are 3 layers that any smart city need to focus on them, and they are the enablement layers for any smart city. One of them is the infrastructure, and when we talk about telcos and the industry players and in this sector, which is a smart city sector, I believe infrastructure is one of them, which is the smart component of the infrastructure, whether it be the connectivity using fiber optic, Wi-Fi, or the IoT platform as a smart component of any smart city, or any other ICT infrastructure in the city. The second layer is the data orchestration layer, and the third layer, which is more important, you've highlighted on the collaboration layer. So if we go back again to the data orchestration layer, today in Dubai, the government of Dubai, they did a lot of experience, and they have lots of solutions wherein they've tried to consolidate many components of the city. They have what they call the government bus, wherein they link the data sets across the governments. When we look into smart Dubai, we don't want only the government to be connected to each other. We want every set of the city to be connected to each other, whether it be the movement of the people, taking these kind of data from teleco operators, or the financial in this sector, or any other sector in the city. It's not something easy. We've never seen such a practice happen globally. And we believe that here in Dubai we can lead that practice. We took very serious steps toward that. We've just announced the Open Data Committee to develop a framework for open data, plus classification for this data, and putting a draft for a law that we can implement and give us the legal framework for collaborating between each other, the data sets. So I believe in Dubai we can lead in that component. And yes, we are serious in it.
Thank you. It's a very interesting development, and hopefully some of our also other panelists can comment on this. Dubai is taking a very serious step towards data or knowledge of the city, and establishing the Open Data Committee and coming up with the framework and laws.
I just want to say something also. Whenever we talk about open data, the rest of the industries, they think that we as a government, we supposed to open up our data. In Smart Dubai, we want both parties around the table, whether it be the government or the industries, to open their both datas. It's not always like the government should only open their data. Everyone should open their data.
Thank you, Dr. Aisha. Interesting clarification. So, panelists, starting with you, Jay. So from data, what have we seen, what have you seen, and what do you think about, again, the partnership, private, public, government opening their data, private opening their data, and that collaboration. How do you see that evolving? And again, what would be a stake, the private sector, industry players' role in this?
I mean, I'll give you the technology perspective. I fully support what Dr. Aisha said, was from the perspective that technology is not for the sake of technology. It's really to drive the vision behind smart city. So when we talk about the data, there are two aspects that are involved. There is the consumer data, and that consumer data world today is within the enterprise, at work. You have it within the home, and that's your home network. And then you have its interaction with the different city services. On the government side, you have the management of these services and how to make them more efficient. So it's really not about opening the data on both sides from informational perspective, but to really have full transparency on what is, from a technology perspective, capable of supporting these services. What is the plan from the government to do that integration and to basically address all the information associated with all these different sectors. And then we can scale the technology to match with these services. I want to build a little bit, just 1 minute on what Igor mentioned, which is connectivity being the building block. It is just the first step, but it is a major building block.
Yeah.
Because today you want to make sure that the network actually first can scale to manage these, what was mentioned this morning, 50 billion connected devices. So if Dubai is going to have few million connected devices, you're going to need a significant network that has densification technologies in it, like small cells. We need regulatory support to make sure that LTE can work on licensed and unlicensed, evolving into 5G. So that's from the network perspective. From the devices perspective, today everyone's calling their product smart. And this is quite a fragmented market today. So you have smart cameras. So are the smart radars on the roads going to be able to connect to different sensors? Are you going to have single-purpose devices or multi-purpose devices? And that's all going to be part of the integration. And for that, we need to be quite open about the product development itself, the roadmaps, and being able to work with the city on the technology.
Thank you, Jay. Hatem, Dubai, specifically the UAE, of course, in general, being one of the, the countries in the world leading in terms of infrastructure and connectivity. I think we've done a very good job at this level. We've very well established the foundation of building a house. You need to start with the foundation, and the infrastructure is well done. On the data side, where do you see someone like Etisalat? What role would Etisalat play, and how would you see yourself within an environment like Smart Dubai in playing a role on the data?
Well, first of all, I think that as a UAE national, we are very proud of the bold steps that the government of Dubai has taken. Dubai have showed us over history that when it decides on something, or when it takes anything that they want to do, for example, tourism, economy, to be the hub or the center of technology, they only meet their objectives, but I guess that they exceed even our objectives, and they set themselves as a reference, I think, not only in the region nowadays, not only in the Middle East region and North Africa, but in the entire world. Dubai today have become a very clear spot in the map of the entire world when it comes to any sectors, whether this, as I said, the business sector, whether it is a services sector. So good job. We hope that they will continue, and we wish them all the success in the journey of being a smart city. Now, the role of Etisalat, as I mentioned previously, that we believe we have already, I think, or I believe, and we have enabled a good technology infrastructure for the people that they live here in the UAE, and of course of all of our markets that we operate on. We have managed to be, when it comes to technology advancement or technology launch, we are at the forefront always, and we position ourselves, as our group CEO said at the beginning of, in the opening, that Etisalat always position itself at the forefront when it comes to technology advancement. We have successfully launched and upgraded our infrastructure, fiber optic. We probably are the best and the biggest country in the entire world who have a connected fiber. So the entire UAE is connected via fiber. We have the fourth generation mobile network that it's already launched commercially. We have as well, I know I'll talk a bit technology here, we have LTE aggregation that reached to 300 megabits per second. And we are as well working with our partners and suppliers to define the next standard required for the mobile broadband, which is the 5G. And as Jay said, it's a combination of small cells and large cells, which will take the speed even further, maybe 1,000 times the speed that we have today. So we have a vision when it comes to technology and the evolution of technology. And we are not doing it just because or for the sake of technology. We believe that technology, it's an enabler. It's an enabler to change people's life. It's an enabler to add intelligence to the way that we live. It is an enabler as well to create value and to enable new business models and a new economy. So whether it's data, whether it is data that will sit in the cloud, or whether it is an infrastructure that it is under the ground, or whether it's a wireless access networks, we are pretty much sure and confident we have very clear roadmap to take the existing network infrastructure to meet the objective or the expectation of the smart city in the future.
Thank you, Hatem. Igor, so we talked about infrastructure and connectivity being the foundation and data. Have you seen, or what's your experience on lessons learned, best practice globally in terms of both infrastructure and data that we should be really looking at or we can learn from?
Well, first of all, I think it's fair to say it's a bit early, and the reason it's a little bit early to reflect is actually Jay almost has stolen, or sorry, I should have said covered most of what I wanted to say, which is the reason it's early is because we're talking still about people. Yeah. And actually, in the future we'll talk about people and things. There will be probably more things in this world connected than people. So therefore, actually, the experience, the lesson learned are very little compared to what's ahead of us. And when I think about that, I think it's three different things. It's different type of solutions. Some of the solutions that we know and that Hatem described, so new technology, 4G, 5G, different access, like small cells, for example, but also different type of, these different applications that the city are going to launch are going to require us to be much closer to the consumer. For example, if you think about Health City, for example, you will have a different type of application and needs, and therefore, with innovation like liquid application that we have in Nokia, for example, put these actually needs closer to the customer, as a few examples. And then we need to talk about safety and public safety, potentially, and security of these data. So different type of solutions when we have people and things connected with different needs. I think the second thing is the flexibility. Again, that's going to be very, very different type of flexibility that we need, actually. And whether it's a telco cloud that I had them talk about, or virtualized cloud, or there will be a resource flexibility need in these smart cities, that they move with the traffic, that they move with the government opening hours, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the second thing. And then the third thing, talking about data, but twisting it a little bit, it's a huge amount of data that we're going to have. So we're going to have big data analytics, predictive potentially areas on that, machine learning as well, because let's assume at some point that a city like Vienna, hopefully more Dubai, will achieve the #1 position in happiness. There is an expectation that it will have to increase. So these actually services will have also to improve. And the only way to improve that is, in the future will be to look at analytics in particular. So again, a completely different world than what we have today. That's why I think the lesson learned of Barcelona or Stockholm or São Paulo today might not be actually that relevant as much as thinking what's ahead of us. And it's a different life. Yeah.
Good point. Jawad, same question to you. What's your perspective? Is DU willing to share its data, open up its data with the government? Do you feel there's a benefit for this partnership in terms of data sharing, and what would be a benefit to the larger city?
I mean, I think if we were to boil all the enablers down to just one word without which a smart city cannot happen, it's data. Yeah. That's sort of the baseline. That unless you have data, you can't imagine any of the smarts actually working. You can have the greatest vision, the governance, and so on and so forth, but unless you have the data. But what makes data truly relevant in a smart city context is when it's truly citywide, not a department, not a telecom provider, not a bank, not a government department. It's when you're able to pool these data sets at a city level, able to give back give to the citizen an experience which is richer. The fact with the data smartness has been built in my journeys of my daily life. Smartness has been built in that I can access because somebody in the background has been able to cobble together transport with health, with traffic, with my mobile pattern, and so on and so forth. So I think that's sort of fundamental. Where the problem typically arises is actually the question: would DO be willing to share? Would Etisalat be willing to share? Would the banks be willing to share? And we have talked about the example of Vienna. The comprehensiveness of Dubai's vision is beyond a use case. So it's not only talking about mobility; it's talking about happiness in civic life, which touches across, across the verticals that Dr. Aisha described. Now, to make that happen, truly, we've seen only a couple of examples around the world where that comprehensiveness, at least at a civic level, has been put forward. One is Valencia that we have studied, and another one is Nanjing in China. And what's in both of those cases, what's common is that this recognition that to create a truly smart city, you need to cut across the silos and really develop that horizontal perspective across the departments. And in both cases, it was not a choice, it was mandated. So the mayor of Valencia, Rita Barbara, mandated that from such and such date, all these departments will provide hooks or data access into the central platform, which will allow the city to be managed in a more smarter way. So, and similarly, Nanjing, in preparation for the Youth Olympics this year, they were able to create that cross-city perspective. And again, when you actually go and see some of the use cases it enables, some of the, from somebody trying to manage a city, you're not getting now discrete feeds from various departments on KPIs. You're now getting a perspective on the city, and that really is very powerful when you really bring that down. So, from the standpoint, of course, data has to be shared clearly, but it will not happen organically. We can't. I mean, my perspective is, in order to reach the vision His Highness has set out, that a very timeline is not luxury of a decade or 2 decades. I think the example that Karim was quoting, Vienna, is talking about a 2050 vision to still be the best place to live in 2050. We're talking about 2017 being the smartest city in the world. Yep. And for that, you cannot let this happen organically and by voluntary steps. This has to, I feel, really be mandated so that there is a very clear directive which sets out, and what other better place to do that in Dubai, because as you can see, what has been created around us. And I was reading in the Harvard Business School case study on Sheikh Mohammed last night, just sort of, and it really talks about being able to have a vision and then drive it through this, very, clear awareness around what we're trying to achieve. So clearly, that's, I think, a fundamental that would need to be established. In terms of the
no pressure, Dr. Aisha. Don't feel any pressure. No pressure. No, nothing at all.
But what's really I want to come back to is the power of actually doing that, and this is what cities are realizing as they implement it, is what the contributing department or function gets back is actually a richer set of data, insights, analytics, which moves them forward in their day-to-day activity that they were trying to be it city planning. Now imagine being able to plan the city or road planning when you could also have a sense for the mobile the flow patterns, because you can see how people move between cell sites. So there is a lot of richness that could be brought to the table. So that's really the getting more back is what then eventually becomes the reason for putting more in, and then but it has to start with the directive. In terms of what we are doing and where we see the perspective, clearly all of the things that Hatem said, the technologies, of course, the connectivity with official Wi-Fi UAE, partner as DO, we're part of FedNet, we have the 4G, so all of those things. But in addition, we're really trying to and working on either in particular verticals like retailing to help create the next sort of a smart retailing experience. There are applications that we're working on there. We are looking at the Internet of Things and both from an enterprise standpoint as well as government standpoint doing that. And then beyond the use cases we can currently see, we also have a partnership with the MIT Sensible Cities Lab, which really sets out the future that we yet are not seeing but is out there. So really from an academic research standpoint, being able to start looking into that as well. But the last thing I would say is that, again, as a telecom operator, we are probably running one of the richest data sets that you can expect. I say that with all humility, but we know more, or we have more data sets precisely about in an individual's, well, their demographics, but their movements, where they are, at what time, and so on and so forth, how who they call, when they were most likely to answer a text, when they're not. So there's a rich, really, set of data that we already have, and drive rich analytics on the back of. And I think that, again, from a standpoint of the roles that could play, or telecom operators could play, would be being already a player in the local sense, already deeply entrenched in that acquisition, storage, analytics of data that could be extended on to the city level.
Thank you. Before we get to Karim, we want to just get ready, please, with your questions, just questions to the panel. A final intervention, Karim, just a short one on data and privacy.
Yeah, I think we spend a lot of time talking about technology, but the major driver is actually the data, to solve the data issue. So Dr. Aisha mentioned before, this is important to get this united and so to say organized, orchestrated, you said, and governed. The whole success story of any service you take starts always with a top-down decision. Why? If I take just one example, again, building on mobility. Mm-hmm. If you want to use a service of mobility, typically you have multiple actors in that game, and most of them are competitors. You take a car or a train or a tramway or underground. Everything is competing, or you take the bike. So if you want to use a service mobility end-to-end, to stay with this example, you have to force every player to provide transparently the pricing in a system that is independent, run by an independent party. Why? Because if you start your journey, you need, first of all, to give your ID. Second, it has to be authentified, just to access the service. Third, it has to be rated. If you're a student, you will pay a different price than an elderly person, than a regular user, etc. Yep. So all this is a very, very sensitive information of every service provider of transportation. Why would you share this information? But you can only provide an integrated service if this information is processed and stored somewhere. Yeah. And move on. Once you have the price, your payment, you will pay, right? So you need to put your profile behind the payment as well. So all these elements work only if each contribute, put his data, including competitors. That's the whole point. The whole point. So competitor will never agree together if there is no top-down decision. Remember, mobile operator failed in the past with mobile advertising. Why? Because if I'm an agency, I want to target the 15 to 18-year-old living in a city and make a campaign. As an agent, I cannot do that because there is no processed data shared platform for that. So if you want to succeed in any service end-to-end, you have to share the data somewhere. Now, where the operator, I'm surprised that the operators are not aggressive enough here, who has today the ability to process billions of data accurately, itemized bill, right, and manage centrally for multiple stakeholder a platform? You are extremely well positioned as an operator. But this will only work, gentlemen, if you two collaborate, share your data as well. So it is very important that this is managed by a third party. You could be the third party for verticals, the automobile industry, the transportation, public transportation, etc. Work and take that stake and collaborate on that. As long as you follow the new procedure that will be defined, what, so to say, is the role, how you can secure the anonymity of the data, not abusing the data. And guess what? The biggest enemy of the transportation public service company was the one we were talking about this morning, the OTT. Because at the end of the day, if the industry does not find a platform where they can work together, Google will do it for you. What they're doing in the hotel industry, in other service provider industry, they're aggregating the data for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to sort out the problem yourself, fix it before the OTT
Out of
comes.
subject.
So
Subject.
we have the first question.
I'm forced to ask a question,
Please.
so I'll create one. I have a quick comment first before the question. So you asked telecom operator and data capabilities. And I think, on behalf of my two colleagues from Duan and Salat and the rest of the telecom operators here, I mean, the amount of information processing we do, part of running our own network. I mean, if you look at the mobile operators in general, they capture a lot of data out of their own networks from sensors information, which is different type of sensor, which is the devices that people carry. But they also capture information from billing information. They capture information from devices that they embed also throughout network or city to better enhance the quality of the network. And then taking this raw data, processing the data, apply intelligence an algorithm to extract the intelligence out of it, and the visualization layer also that they do for their own use. And now the only difference that they will do, they would be able to aggregate other data from other sources and different type of intelligence. So you are, as a telecom operator, have a lot of capability. Today you might not be using it today for a lot of these things, but the back end that you have, the people, the capability, you have what you call them, CRM experts, but these are can be enhanced with other intelligence and become data scientists with the mix of the business intelligence that comes from the city. So this is my quick comments. Question to Dr. Aisha mainly, before she leaves us on the panel. So we've seen in a lot of cities creating the framework, creating the vision. When it comes to the services, particularly execution, partly it will be done by the city itself and the city departments, but the other part it will be open for development from private sector, from developers, from startup. I understand that, because of the short time frame that we have, we cannot open up, we cannot wait for somebody to come, but we'll have to start executing on some of the key ones. But what's the plan for the next step beyond the RTA doing its own initiative, the DIWA doing its own initiative? What will be next?
As we said today, data orchestration layer is a must for any smart city. Once you have this platform where all the data sets in the city are, let us say, in a quality level that anyone in the city can come, participate, take these kind of data sets and develop applications, I think that's what we are targeting here. Yes, of course, as a city, we have to start some kind of projects. One of the main projects we have is to develop the dashboard with two levels, decision makers level and personal dashboard. Our partner from the government, Dubai Smart Government, already started their first, or let us say, the initial version of a personal dashboard, and they launched it in GITEX called M-Dubai, wherein they can do whatever. I think one of you here, gentlemen, said, I can go to I can book appointment with the clinic and see the way to the clinic, and if there is any parking or SALIC to pay, or maybe going to renew my car, and I need to search where is the nearest insurance company and nearest registration office to me. So this is already available as a first version of the personal dashboard. We cannot wait for developers to come and develop for us a dashboard. This will be the main element for decision makers to sense how technology can help us in improving the services and bring more efficiency to our services. But once we have that kind of platform, all the data is clean, secure, with a certain level of quality, then everyone can join us in our journey in transforming Dubai to the smartest city.
So other questions, please. So essentially what we're saying is that the ability for the private sector to participate will be right there as the private sector gets more and more access to data. and then they can participate by being more creative, more innovative than the government. But there are certain premises that the government's actually stepping ahead of the private sector initially to build up. But certainly the private sector has the opportunity if the open data platform is developed.
I'm asking a question now to you, Ghazi, and Dr. Aisha, as resident of Dubai, not as the 4 pillars you have mentioned in the video, okay? We already, as residents, we are enjoying these 4 pillars. So can you elaborate more what this initiative of Smart Dubai can bring to the resident of Dubai?
We want from the smart element of the city to enrich the experience. If we say today, when you wake up in the morning and you can plan your journey during the day very seamlessly, you can book your appointments, you can renew your passport or your car license, and doing all your day-to-day elements in a touch of a button. This is how we want the experience to be for the residents or the visitors for Dubai, with the utilization, of course, of technology.
The idea is to enhance, enrich what we do experience in Dubai. We feel safe.
We are smart already, but we want to be the smartest.
We want to be even you spoiled. We cannot live outside.
We are raising the bar for other cities to.
Make it our life. Make it easy. Make it easy. When we travel now, we don't enjoy it anymore.
That's the downside of being in a very smart city.
We've raised the bar as a city so much that now we're not satisfied anymore with other cities. So, other questions from the audience before we conclude? Are we too shy? Please.
So you said too shy, and PK could obviously not take that.
PK is not shy.
So the vibrancy of a smart city will come when people start using this data that we're talking about. So what would be the excess of this data for the private sector? What would be the availability, and what would be the cost of that availability? Like if I'm a startup or a company which is making apps around this data, how will I get access to it, and what will be the cost of that?
Yes, we are still actually at the beginning of our journey of setting all these framework for data. I'm sure we will set certain business models, whether it be a startup or any private entity want to utilize the data. When we said it is open data, we didn't finalize whether it will be free or with charges. But I believe today the effort that the government put into developing systems and applications, we want the private sector to take that load. It's not their responsibility anymore to develop applications. They need to focus into how to improve the efficiency and the quality of the service, rather than focus only into developing applications. Actually, what you've seen all over the world, that governments, they are focusing on infrastructure and application, excluding the data layer. We want to focus into the data layer, making sure that there is a quality of the data that we put it into that open platform, and the floor will be open for everyone to come and join, whether it be a private or a single individual who want to utilize such data.
Thank you, Dr. Aisha. Any other questions from, there's a question right behind you.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question to Dr. Aisha. I understand.
we can go down now.
I will divert this question. Go ahead,
we're part of the same industry, so it's better to divert the question to Dr. Aisha to understand more about what's going on. So my question is that part of the happiness vision is to make things simpler and easier for citizens and for residents and for the population. While we are talking about simplicity, we imagine that everybody in the population is aware of how to use the technology. But there is a complexity element into this. Are you addressing this by setting the scene? How are you addressing this? Are you setting the scene, preparing the population, preparing the people? Because there is a percentage of people who don't yet know how to use complex applications or even simple applications.
Not in Dubai, not in UAE. UAE, they have the highest penetration of using smart mobiles. So I believe whoever can use a smart mobile can use any application. But when we said about simplicity, it was an example given by His Highness Sheikh Hamdan. He said, we asked for smart government 2 years ago. And last year when he visited GITEX, in every stand, they will download an application in his smart mobile. He ended up with having 1,000 applications. He said, this is not simple at all. You make my life more miserable now. He said, when I go and visit any other country and any other city, I don't know who is there behind the scene, who is running the services. I want the same here to happen to people in Dubai. I don't want them to know that there is Matar al-Tayr in RTA, or Saeed al-Tayr in Diwa, or Mizena in Shurta, in police. I want a very seamless service. I want one window. I can go there and do all my services, regardless who is the entity providing the service. This is when we are talking about simplicity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question behind you, but I will definitely divert this one. The question right there from, is that you? Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Rashid from Ariba Ariba. My question to Dr. Aisha, what to do?
No, Ayman, no. Go ahead.
Because actually the subject is very hot and everybody is amazed by how Dubai initiatives always give attention. My question, by doing smart government, I think after a few years, social media will be one of the enablers to provide services, smart services. What you are looking at the social media, what security aspects you need from social media so it can help you to give social services, if you call it.
Okay. When we talk about smart cities, not a smart government, because you believe in Dubai, we start the journey very early in 2002 with the e-government and the evolution of e-government into m-government and smart government. So we are mature on that level of government component as a smart government. Talking about social media, for sure, social media is one of the components in our data orchestration layer. It's the unstructured data. Today, the committee, it's one of their mandate to put a framework how to deal with the unstructured data and the security level behind it. And once it's become secured and put in a quality level, then it will be open for the developers to utilize it to develop services to be launched through the social media.
Karim, you have a comment on social?
No, I don't have a comment, ladies and gentlemen. I just have a question for Hatem, who has been frustrated because he's not getting a question. So I'm asking a question now to you, and I've activated the microphone for you as well. Hatem, as a group now, do you think that smart city is something that has to be addressed locally? Or do you think that a group, on a group perspective, as you're operating in many countries, is a competent center for telco to develop across border and across operations?
I think the initiative of Smart City, it's basically a government initiative at first, or it's an ecosystem that has so many stakeholders and players. But the main driver I could see in establishing or going towards Smart City is the government. The government should initiate that journey, because at the end, Smart City, it's about changing or converting a city to be more smarter, or enrich the experience. Let me put it in this way: enrich the experience to be more productive and more pleasant experience to deal. So the customer, if you think of it, I am an enabler, but the customer, it's the city itself. So, but certainly and we've seen this as well, and because we are now part of the group and we deal with so many countries and governments across our footprint, so we've seen a lot of initiatives nowadays in the areas where we operate, that there's a lot of government are interested to move either a city or a specific part of the city, meaning transportation sector in that city, for example, that they are interested to understand how can we convert it to be a smarter, or for example, utilization of utilities and energy sectors. How can we make it more efficient by enabling, smart systems and smart architecture? So yes, we are leveraging on our expertise in that area, and we are mapping this experience to so many governments and markets that we operate in.
Hatem, Dr. Aisha wants, please.
I think this century is the city century. Cities will compete with each other, but also will complement each other. So telecos, they need to run with that vision behind cities. And smart cities initiatives is one of the initiatives to improve the quality of life in these cities. Government, for sure, they are leading smart cities initiatives. But private sector, they are the enabler, and they are partner in this journey. And citizens and residents, they are at the heart of that initiative.
And perhaps enabler, I would add another layer. You are an operator, so why don't you operate one of these layers that will be supported? This is the additional hint I'm giving you.
Thank you, Karim. Thank you. I would like to... One comment, please, Tony. Ula, I will repeat.
The smart cities, okay, thank you. So the smart cities is not competing, it's completing. Okay, for this we said smart cities leading to smart countries. Okay, so we don't compete, we complete.
Thank you, Tony. I want to conclude the session. Thank the panelists. It is certainly, and very well also said by Dr. Aisha at the end, it's an interesting journey that we're embarking on. And I do believe it's going to be quite a challenging journey for all of us. So putting our hands together in partnership will be the key to success. Thank you all, and we'll pass on to the next panel discussion. Thank you.